Alrighty guys, welcome back to another Asphalt Legends patch notes video. I know it's been a while, but we're back, and today we actually have a pretty big update. Now initially I was thinking this feels like more of a filler type of season, but the more I delved into the patch notes, the more I found interesting and exciting. So in today's video we are going to go over the patch notes for the Phantom Riders update. I'm going to tell you guys all about the new cars, about all of the new events, and then we'll talk about all of the new features. So buckle up and let's go. Alright, so starting off with a pretty good S-Class car, this is the Racer Agalia. I'm hopefully pronouncing that correctly, but anyway, it looks very different compared to the other racer cars that we have in the game, so maybe this seems like more of a production ready car, but anyway, the performance is pretty insane. Now, as you can see from its max rank of 4,880, it isn't going anywhere near the Racer Tachyon Tartarus, but it can hold its own in a couple of categories. Now, the top speed at 273 isn't amazing, but I want to point you guys to the acceleration of just below 86. That's pretty darn good for a higher end S-Class car that actually has a pretty good top speed. You'll note that a couple of other high-end S-Class cars like the Cyan, and I believe the Pininfarina is up there as well with pretty good acceleration, but they don't really have good top speeds. This one, on the other hand, both has a pretty good top speed and pretty good acceleration. So I can see this being a pretty darn good car for Legend League if you get matched into tracks like maybe Tuscany or other twisty tracks. Alright, moving to a very high-end A-Class car, this is the Automobili Pininfarina B95. It looks very similar to the Ferrari Monza SP2 with that sort of speedster theme going on. I think this looks like someone took a Pininfarina Battista and just chopped the roof off, so it's kind of quirky looking, but I do enjoy those cool looking seats though. But anyway, it is a very high-end A-Class car. I believe it is ranked above the De Tomaso P72, so nothing to scoff at. Could be a king on certain tracks. You can see the top speed is around 246 miles per hour, which is very good for A-Class. However, kind of like the Racer we just talked about, combine that with a very high acceleration of just under 87, especially for that upper end of A-Class, I think this is going to be a very good multiplayer car. You're probably looking at around Platinum 1 to be very competitive, so I'm excited to take this out for a spin. It looks very good. Next up, we have the Aston Martin DBS 770 Ultimate, and this is ironically a very high-end C-Class car, not a king for sure, but it sits around just below the Lamborghini Gallardo, and I was taken aback because I thought this would be a higher-end B-Class car, maybe even a mid-tier A-Class car, because in my view, this should be just a better version of the DBS Superleggera that we already have. Now, so that makes me a little confused as to why this is placed in C-Class and not even a king at that, but either way, it has a top speed of 220, which is pretty decent for C-Class, nothing crazy, acceleration of 77.55, and some mid-tier handling and nitro stats. So this is going to be an average C-Class car. Again, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I thought this would be the better version of the DBS Superleggera. So another one of those confusing things where Gameloft puts a better car in a worse rank and a worse class than an already existing car. So again, explain to me in the comment section if this actually makes sense and I'm just losing my mind. But what I will say here before we move on to the next car is that I really would prefer if this were actually the new Aston Martin Vanquish. I've seen that car around, it's brand new, it looks super sick. Maybe that could have been like a very high-end C-Class car or a high-end B-Class car. Maybe we'll see that in the near future though. Next up, and again, another car that took me for a surprise, this is the Lotus Emeya. This is their luxury electric SUV, something that nobody would have ever thought in a million years a company like Lotus would produce, but I think because of the new ownership, that is sort of the direction that they are going. But anyway, this looks like a pretty average / low tier D-Class car, not really anything to be excited about. In fact, its rank is pretty similar to the Lotus Elise Sprint. You can see the max rank is 2,400 and that Lotus Elise is 2,390. So very opposite Lotus cars sitting right next to each other in D-Class. So the top speed is 171, not really that good. In fact, it's sort of similar to the very low end D-class cars, but it has pretty good acceleration for that top speed. Handling and nitro, ironically, are very good. Again, this is a big, massive SUV, heavy SUV, I should say. So yeah, I'm not sure where they're getting that handling figure from. And in fact, it is worse than the Elise Sprint, so that does at least make a little bit of sense. Not the most exciting car, I might say, but you know what? I've been saying for a very long time, I want more weird SUVs in this game, and we're getting it. So in that respect, I'm quite happy that they are bringing more diversity to the game. Next up, moving from a electric SUV made by Lotus, we are going to a hybrid race car made by BMW, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty sure this is a similar sort of class to some of the other cars that we have in the game, such as the Lamborghini SC63 and the Ferrari 499P. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they race in the same classes. But either way, this is a pretty decent B-class car sitting in the game. Now, in terms of rank, it sits below cars like the Huracan, so I don't think you're going to be proclaiming this as the new king of B-class anytime soon, but just taking a look at the well-rounded stats of the car, it does seem like it will be a pretty good performer in multiplayer just for a general experience. Again, you're not going to be pushing the boundaries of what's possible, like getting up into the top end of Platinum League with a B-class car, but it has pretty decent stats overall. Nothing really stands out except for maybe the nitro that is pretty good, but again, you're falling below some other cars like the Vanda and the Huracan. Those are classic nitro cars again, but you know, it's a pretty good car. I'm excited to see some more race cars make it to Asphalt Legends. Alright, now for the car that you all actually came here for. This is the Koenigsegg 1-to-1, the infamous car. We've had it in Asphalt 8. It's making its return to Asphalt Legends. Basically an Agalia RS, but on steroids. This is the 1-to-1. So in terms of top speed, it's pretty good, sitting at around 282 at max. And along with that, we actually do have some pretty decent acceleration. The Agalia, I believe, was stuck well under 80, but this time for the 1-to-1, we have it at 83, so it can actually hold its own in terms of acceleration. Now, the rank is 5076, and that puts it just below what I have with the Zenvo Aurora Tour at a max rank of 5100. So not a new king of the game or anything like that. We typically expect those in like the winter and the summer updates, as I'm sure you guys can predict. But it is a really good S-Class car. I am a little disappointed that we are still getting so many of these high top speed focused S-Class cars with really horrendous nitro stats. It just makes the game feel a little more annoying rather than like skillful. Yes, obviously you need to learn nitro management at this rank, but I will say that having more of these cars with slightly better nitro efficiencies would just be a more balanced experience in my opinion. Either way, I'm sure you guys are all excited for this car to finally be added to Asphalt Legends, and so am I. And lastly, we do have yet another S-Class car in this update, the Ford Mustang RTR Spec 5FD. What a mouthful, but this is a pretty middle-of-the-road S-Class car. In terms of rank, it sits just above the Koenigsegg Regera, so not a king or anything crazy like that. The top speed is also pretty mediocre. It sits at around 258 miles per hour, which isn't bad, but again, it's right next to the Regera that I believe goes over 290, which is a little insane. The acceleration is also a little underwhelming, but what you will notice is that for an S-Class car, this does have pretty insane nitro efficiency at 74.4. Now, that's awesome, another S-Class car with really good nitro, but unfortunately it doesn't quite have the top speed in my opinion to start competing with those very high-end S-Class cars. So honestly, I'm a little unsure of where this is going to fall in terms of how this competes with other S-Class cars. I'm sure it will be interesting in multiplayer, but that lack of acceleration is really going to hold it back. But I'm curious to get it out on the track and see how it drives. Alright, so those are all of the cars with this update, a pretty exciting lineup, but there are a couple of things that personally I would have liked to see instead. But again, nonetheless, some pretty cool cars that we are seeing. Now let's take a look at the special events and features. Alright, so we are going to have a couple of big special events for this update. Firstly, the HoloLive Spotlight. So there are going to be a couple of featured VTubers and a couple of featured decals as well, and some cars that will be featured include things like the Mustang RTR Spec 5 FD that we just talked about, the Vanda, which is going to be hilarious, the Lexus Electrified Sport Concept, and the Noble M600 Speedster, among some others. So this Spotlight event is going to play like your classic Spotlight event as far as I'm aware, so it will be a good opportunity to maybe star up a couple of those cars and get some decals if you are into VTuber stuff. Next up, this is a good opportunity to also talk about one of the new features, or kind of, but 3 new cars are going to get the Evo upgrades. So we are getting Evo upgrades for the Ferrari SF90 Stradale, the Chevrolet Corvette ZR1, and the BMW 3.0 CSL Homage. Now these new tuned cars will have a special event to help you unlock them and get your Evo parts for those cars once you get them at max, so that's going to be its own dedicated special event. Now we talked about the Aston Martin DBS 770 in the previous section of the video, and to unlock the car you will have to participate in a Grand Prix. So glad to see that one of the new cars will be unlockable for a lot of you guys out there if you got the skills to prove it. Again, with that group of 20 people you go up to with the Grand Prix. Now in terms of your classic special events, the Razor Agalia will get its own special event. So the supporting cars will include the McMurtry Spearling, the Rimac Concept 1, the 499P Modificata, the SSC Ultimate Aero TT, and the Bugatti Mistral and normal Tuatara. So quite the lineup of support cars. I'm unsure if I'm going to actually get very far in this event. Usually when these special events come around, I don't even think about unlocking the main car. I just think about getting things like different rewards, like tokens, maybe starring up a couple of the support cars, nothing crazy like that. But if you're a racer fan, then this might be a good chance to get that car. Now for the second Spotlight event for this update, it will be themed around Cthulhu, so this seems like it's going to be the Halloween themed Spotlight, which seems pretty fun, and you will be playing with the W Motors Lycan Neon Edition and the Porsche 918 Spider. Now supposedly in this event you will actually be getting chased by other cars, and collectibles on the track will help you avoid it. So quite a different gameplay change compared to some of the other Spotlight events, so I'm curious to see how this plays out, and it seems like it could be quite exciting. Next up, we are having a Grand Prix focused around the Evo feature with the Ferrari Enzo, so it seems like you can maybe give different setups a shot and see which ones work better for different tracks. This will be quite interesting to see how it plays out. The Ultima RS Special Hunt is going to return, and throughout the course of the season, there will be the seasonal revving event with the support cars of the previous season, or I mean the featured cars such as the Silver Lightning and the Agera RS, so you can get some rewards if you unlock those cars. Alright, so in terms of features, I already covered the 3 new Evo cars, the SF90 Stradale, the Corvette ZR1, and the BMW Homage. However, we also now have the Ultimate Startup cards. So these will be class-based, and you can use one card to instantly star up any of the respective cars in that class. So for example, you can see on screen, this looks like an S-Class Ultimate Startup. So in any of your S-Class cars, you can apply this card and it will star up whatever car that is. This seems like it's going to be extremely useful, let's say during a very big special event where you have the featured car at maybe 5 out of 6 stars, but you don't quite have the token count to go for those packs. You can use one of these cards to push it over the line and get your key. This is going to be very useful for those scenarios. Next up, we have a cosmetic feature that I have been really hoping would be added for a long time in Asphalt, but they are calling it flagship cars. So with these flagship cars, there will be a button in the garage when you're viewing the 3D model that will allow you to open the door and get a closer look at the interior of the car. Compared to previous Asphalt games, we have had much better detailed interiors, and I've been wondering for many years when they would finally allow us to take a look. Now it seems like it's just going to be opening the door. You won't really be able to step inside like some other games like Forza and The Crew, which is a little disappointing, but at least we are getting the ability to open the doors and take a look inside. Now, for this season, we are going to get support for the Mazda Super GT, the Racer Agalia, and the Koenigsegg One. However, they do mention that each season they will be adding more support. This is really awesome, and I think this is a good step to making the cars feel more real in Asphalt Legends. Alright, so before we wrap up the video, just want to mention a couple of small little details. Firstly, there is going to be an update/DLC available to download that will give the Nintendo Switch 2 a little bit more performance support and improvements, which is nice to see. And there's going to be a new offer wall page. Wow, that's awesome, cool, I'm so excited. There's going to be better iOS Game Center support, so things like leaderboards and achievements can be viewable through Game Center as well, which is quite cool. And unfortunately, the Brabham BT62 is going to be leaving the featured rotation, so that does mean though, if you have any amount of blueprints for the car, you will be getting a free key before it is removed. And finally, we do have a new list of songs that are going to be added to the game. Not going to go through them individually, but it's just cool to see that the soundtrack is being updated. Alright, so overall that was a pretty beefy update, but keen-eyed viewers will notice that this absolutely does not follow what we were saying with the roadmaps that were released earlier in the year. Now, hopefully in the future we will get an update as to what's going on with the roadmap. I mean, they've been pretty silent for a while, so hopefully we will get some more communication in the near future. And of course, if you want to subscribe to this channel, you will receive all of those updates as soon as we find out. But I said at the beginning of this video, I was kind of tempted to call this a filler season, and while I am excited for all of these new cars and features, it does kind of seem like it's more of a filler. Hopefully they are working on some cool stuff in the background, but we will just have to wait and see. But again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think of the new cars and features, and I will talk with you all later.